YouTube. Oh yeah, we got a good one for you today. We got a great one for you today. So, yeah, we're going to be discussing the baby boomers' most favorite treasured thing of all time, as well as nerds and gamma males and every other NASA fanboy out there. So I can't wait to review the comment section and just get in there and debate people on all the dumb things they're going to say about this, because the moon landings were absolutely 100% faked. It's actually not even that interesting of a conspiracy theory, and it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much to poke holes in this conspiracy theory at all, which is why we're going to demonstrate today. This is not going to be an exhaustive demonstration of everything that you can get into around the Apollo 11 missions, NASA, the founding of NASA, JPL Laboratories, Jack Parsons, Werner von Braun, Operation Paperclip. This is just going to demonstrate how easy it is to address a lot of just really dumb things that people bring up in this video alone. There's multiple things that you can just easily address that people are just going to completely ignore in the comment section, and they're going to go crazy. And I can't wait for it. I can't wait to debate you people. I can't wait. I love it. I love how just ridiculous people act when someone has a different opinion about the moon landings. And let me repeat myself again. Yes, they were fake. And we're going to poke holes in multiple things that people bring up as it relates to the moon landings. And there, just before we even get into the video, as it relates to the BBC and their debunking moon landing conspiracy theories, a debunking video. I mean, just how impressive this video is. It's not impressive at all, by the way. It's actually very low tier, just rhetorical crap and just people laughing and whatnot. A bunch of British people just mocking, which is fine. It's fine. But I'm going to go ahead and address and just bring up a lot of things that I know people are going to say in the comment section as it relates to defending the moon landings. For example, why would NASA lie? Why would they lie? Which is one of the dumbest questions to ask when it comes to a topic like this. You are effectively asking why a government would lie. I mean, my response to that is, do you inherently trust the U.S. government? Because if your answer is yes, you shouldn't. I mean, if the last few years have taught us anything about governments, is that not only will they will lie to the detriment of their populations. And that includes all forms of government. The executive branch lies, the judicial branch lies, the legislative branch lies, the military lies. I mean, why does anybody lie? Why have you ever lied in your life? Why do people lie in general? There's tons of reasons why governments lie. There's tons of reasons why any individual would lie: to control the narrative, to sway public opinion, to maintain control. There's all types of reasons why people lie. I mean, it's one of the dumbest questions you could ask. Just to demonstrate the level of nonsense that can come from your government, and how untrustworthy the United States government is today, and how untrustworthy it's been for decades. I mean, here's an example here: Operation Northwoods. I bet a ton of you people have never even heard of Operation Northwoods. Oh, you're just some conspiracy theorist. I mean, if you're not a conspiracy theorist at this point, you're a low IQ idiot. That may sound mean, maybe, a little intense, but seriously, how can you not at the very least ask questions? I mean, the idea that you should just believe everything that your government says, especially during a Cold War. I mean, here's an example right here of the United States government planning to do something pretty bad. Here's Operation Northwoods. Operation Northwoods was a proposed false flag operation that originated within the U.S. Department of Defense of the United States government in 1962. Ooh, 62, the 60s. Similar time as the Apollo programs, or at least when they started. The proposal called for CIA operatives to both stage and commit acts of terrorism against American military and civilian targets, blame them on the Cuban government, and use them to justify a war against Cuba. That's your Department of Defense planning something like that. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is literally admitted by the government. Here's another one, the Gulf of Tonkin incident. For those of you who don't know, the Gulf of Tonkin incident was used to get the United States either involved in the Vietnam War or more involved in and around Vietnam. The Gulf of Tonkin incident was a deliberate falsehood propagated by the United States to help it politically justify deeper engagement in the Vietnam War. It consisted of a supposed confrontation on August 2nd, 1964. There's the 60s again, when the United States forces were carrying out covert amphibious operations close to the North Vietnamese territorial waters, which triggered a response from the North Vietnamese forces. The United States government falsely claimed that a second incident occurred on August 4th, 1964. I mean, your government lies. The United States military lies, which NASA is a part of that. I mean, the WMDs, where are the weapons of mass destruction that basically got us into Iraq? Or one of the reasons why we were in Iraq. WMDs, did we ever find any? Do they exist? Are you understanding the point? Your government lies. And yes, NASA has lied. And yes, if you honestly think it is pure just being philosophically consistent. If all these other government agencies lie, you can bet NASA, who gets billions of dollars a year, has tons of reasons to lie. And no, they're not a bastion of, just truth from the United States government. Here's just a few examples of NASA, just to kind of wet your whistle a little bit before we even get into the video. NASA, let's see here. This is a New York Times article from the 1980s, and I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Dr. James Fletcher, who headed the agency in the 1970s and whom President Reagan has nominated to lead it out of the post-accident era, is said by the federal auditors to have misled Congress and the public in the 1970s about essential costs of the shuttle program. Dr. Fletcher's confirmation hearings open in Congress today. In an interview, one of a series with past and present NASA officials, Dr. Fletcher conceded he was, quote-unquote, over-optimistic, but he denied he attempted any way to mislead Congress. Of course he did. The pattern of mismanagement problems, as well as broken promises on costs, schedules, and performance, emerges from a review by the New York Times of more than 500 audits over government documents and economic reports by outside experts and from interviews with American space experts. In the last 15 years, bad administration and spending abuse have been found in virtually every aspect of the NASA operations, from running the shuttle to developing planetary probes, from satellites to construction of buildings, from space experiments to employee overtime, from headquarters to field centers, according to the documents. Yes, NASA lies. NASA has billions of reasons every year to do things that they probably shouldn't do. The other thing that I'm going to address is the idea and the straw man, which I shouldn't address a straw man, but I am going to address a straw man because not many moon landing conspiracy theorists actually make this argument. But it's the argument that too many people would know. Too many people would have to be in on it. Completely irrelevant argument. Number one, you don't know, and I don't know how many people would be in on it. I have no idea. It's not an argument that I make. It's a straw man. But I'm going to address the straw man. Why? Because it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant because it's subjective. What number of people would be too little or small enough to satisfy people's answer of this isn't enough people? You could therefore have a legit conspiracy. Would it be 20 people? Would it be 50 people? Would 150 people be too many? Would 500 people be too many? It's a moving goalpost. And it's irrelevant. It's not an argument that I'm making. It's not an argument that a lot of people make on this topic. But just to take it a step further, no, not a lot of people would have to know. And I will give you an example. Enron. Enron was a giant company that collapsed due to fraud. Giant company. Look it up. Enron. Thousands of employees. Thousands of employees at Enron. You know how many people were indicted in Enron? Less than 30. Less than 30 out of thousands of employees. You do not need a ton of people to know what's going on, to do things, to trick people. No, the average engineer at NASA has no idea what goes on in the leadership in NASA. No, the average salesperson at Enron had no idea what the executive committee was doing. You don't need tons of people to commit a conspiracy. But even to address it even further, there were thousands of people that worked on the Manhattan Project. Thousands. And no other countries found out about it? Japan had no clue about it? Thousands of people. And there were no leaks? So again, you see, it's a moving goalpost. It is irrelevant. There's too many people knew about it. No. Your average NASA employee has no idea what goes on in leadership. You know, I mean, one time I heard a baby boomer tell me, I mean, just ridiculous comment. I believe in the moon landings because my father flew astronauts from one point on Earth to another spot on Earth. Therefore, therefore we drove dune buggies on the moon. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's so stupid. Dude just admitted his dad was basically a Uber driver for astronauts on Earth. Therefore, space travel. I mean, it's just so stupid. I can't wait for the dumb comments. You know, and just to throw more shade at NASA, because I know you people love NASA. They love it. You people love NASA. Hubble huggers. Oh my God, NASA fanboys, you're so nerdy. CNN article. NASA scientist pleads guilty to lying about involvement in Chinese government recruitment program. Ooh, from 2021. A senior NASA scientist pleaded guilty on Wednesday in a New York federal court to lying about his involvement with a program established by the Chinese government, which the U.S. says sought to recruit those with access to intellectual property. What? Spies have infiltrated NASA? Texas A&M. Texas A&M professor arrested for conspiracy, making false statements and wire fraud. Texas A&M professor Zedong Chang, 53, was charged with conspiracy, making false statements and wire fraud on Sunday, according to the Department of Justice. Chang is a professor in the College of Engineering at Texas A&M and a NASA researcher working on U.S. space projects. Chang allegedly led a team conducting research for NASA and, according to the criminal complaint, willfully took steps to obscure his affiliations and collaborations with a Chinese university and at least one Chinese-owned company for several years. I mean, the Chinese have infiltrated NASA? What? Yes, NASA lies. NASA has problems. I mean, it's just stop. Just stop with the just blind fandom of NASA. But here's the video we're going to get into. Here's the video we're going to address. This is going to be fun. I mean, this stuff is just so... Oh my God, I love debating people on the moon landings because people freak out about this. And it's really not... I mean, this is like level 1 conspiracy theory for those listening to this. But here's the BBC. allegedly debunking the moon landing conspiracy theories. And this, I think this video is about a year old, but here we go.
Would you believe that they put a man on the moon?
Who? Who, these guys?
NASA.
Oh, NASA. Yes, yeah, I think
You believe that?
Yeah,
I believe it.
Yes, you believe it. Good, that's all. That's sort of all at the end of the question, really. But you probably know that quite a lot of people don't believe it.
No.
Yeah, but well, I sort of believe one thing.
Yeah.
Ooh, what kind of goodies does he have?
Which is, I kind of believe that they might have done some mocked-up fake photographs.
Really, why?
Because I was shown, someone convinced me of it.
Yeah.
But
You know why someone convinced them of it? Because it's not hard to poke holes in the moon landing narratives. Let me address something else with people. It's not because I know so little about NASA and the Apollo missions and the Apollo programs that I question it. It's because I know so much about it that it's so easy to poke holes in it, and there are so many questions. That's why. I mean, most of the people, when they, you don't believe in the moon landings? I'm like, no, absolutely not. And then they'll sit there and say, well, that's just ridiculous. How could you not believe in the moon landings? And I'll ask them simple questions, just like name all of the members of the Apollo 11 mission. Name them right now. Don't Google it. Don't even try to look it up. And most people can name Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong. And then that's it. Yeah, it was a 3-man moon mission. You know who the other person is that 90% of people can't name because they don't know anything? Michael Collins. Yeah, but people like that, what was the date that the moon, what was the year that the Apollo 11 landed on the moon? You don't even have to give me the month. What was the year? Most people can't even do that. And yet I'm the one who doesn't know anything. I'm the conspiracy theorist. The reason most people don't question this stuff is because people are easy to trick. Unbelievably easy to trick. The reason I don't believe in the moon landings is because I know so much about it. That's why. And once you see a lot of this stuff, it is obvious. And again, this is just surface level stuff. This isn't even getting into the team who was the original Apollo 11 team. Gus Gresham. Oh, I bet most of you have never heard that. I bet most of the people who comment on this video have never even heard of that guy. Yeah. Why don't you look him up? I mean, I'm not even going to get into a lot of that stuff. But, I mean, it's just ridiculous. I can't wait for the comment section on this video.
I'm talking about the angle of light and the shadows on the moon and all that stuff. But then I did an advert with Patrick Moore, and I said, so, Patrick, did they land on the moon? And he looked so annoyed with me.
Yeah.
Actually, he explained to me how he had helped map the moon for NASA, and he'd spent years on the project, and the landing site was partly his idea. And if
Yeah, notice how nobody even addressed the shadows and the intersecting shadows and all the other things that he mentioned. He just moved on to asking an individual questions about the moon landings who got annoyed with them and, planned all this stuff. But you're not even going to address the shadows, the problems with the shadows, which I'm not even making that argument. But notice how they just move on from that topic.
If I ever spoke to him again, he was going to be sick in my eyes.
They are rather tight. If you'd spoken to Buzz Aldrin, he might have punched you.
I was going to say...
Buzz Aldrin punched someone because he just got so tired of these conspiracy asses.
Yeah, there's no other reason why Buzz Aldrin, who went into a drunken depression after the moon landings, would get mad and punch somebody in the face. There's no other reason why. It's just he was tired of it. He was tired of it. Yeah. Okay.
I think it was a television documentary about...
Well, there have been several, of course.
look at this photo. This couldn't possibly have been taken on the moon. This is obviously taken in a studio.
You're getting me started now, because one gets very sort of strange about this. But there are a lot of conspiracies. 6% of Americans believe that man didn't land on the moon, but 25% of Britons believe that they didn't. So it's a...
6% of Americans don't believe in the moon landings. And this video was as of a year ago, so 2023. Yeah, that's not the only problem you Hubble-hugging NASA fanboys have. So here's just a few statistics by age. So people 65 and older, which, the boomers, of course the boomers are this is one of their most treasured American lies ever. I mean, boomers freak out about this. But by age, 90% of people 65 and older who were surveyed in this survey, 90+% believe the moon landing was real. Ages 50 to 64, 86%, round up to 87% of people believe the moon landing was real. Ages 50 to 64. Ages 35 to 49, 71% believe the U.S. landed on the moon. Ages 18 to 34, 66% believe the moon landing was real. Not only is the percentage of people growing who don't believe in the moon landing and don't look at NASA as just they're the greatest ever. Oh my God, NASA. My uncle was an engineer for NASA, and he went to the Kennedy Space Center one time. Not only is the percentage getting higher, it's getting much higher with different generations. Here's just a Google. I don't even know if this is true or not, but here's another statistic, and I'm just going to read it for those of you who may be just listening. According to a 2022 survey, 9 to 12% of Americans agree with the conspiracy claim that the moon landings were faked, while 71 to 80% disagree. Another 9 to 19% of respondents were unsure. So at the very least, on the low end, almost 20% of Americans either don't believe in the moon landings or are unsure. On the high end, because it's giving a range here, on a high end, over 30% of Americans either don't believe in the moon landings or are unsure about it. That's almost 1 in 3 people in the United States who either don't believe in them or aren't sure about it. So all the people who freak out about the moon landings, yeah, there's a lot of us. There's a lot of us.
Quarter of our nation are not convinced, apparently.
That's so depressing.
Isn't it?
It is.
The flag, it's one of its...
Why is it depressing? Here's another, just little thing for everybody that's going to freak out about this who comments on this video. Why is this depressing? This is one of the most insignificant, benign things to have an opinion about. Me not believing in the moon landing has absolutely no effect, positive or negative whatsoever, on your life or my life. It's actually kind of negative on my life because people freak out about it. I mean, this is literally the like debating what your favorite color is. Who cares? Who cares? This has no negative effect on anybody's life. It's depressing. What a dork that you have that strong of an opinion about it. I mean, there are tons of things that mean in orders of magnitude more from just a pure opinion and cultural standpoint than whether or not we landed on the moon, such as morality, values, how you treat people. I mean, there are tons of things that are infinitely more important than whether or not you believe we went to the moon. But I mean, people feel so strongly about this. It's crazy how strongly people feel about this. But again, I kind of like it. I kind of like it. A lot of people stay in the closet about this. Yeah, I'll debate you all day long. I'll debate the entire comment section on this video. I can't wait.
One other thing I read...
the flag is another thing,
it's
yes.
The flag, and you
yeah,
think,
but there it is.
Well, obviously they've starched the flag because they wanted to get a good photograph of it. They've stiffened the flag.
No, they haven't stiffened it. That's the point. The fact it's rumpled. There's no breath of wind out there, obviously, because you're in space, which is, as it were, a vacuum. But what there is movement. If you impart movement to something, it doesn't stop moving for a long time because there's there's no resistance against it. So they unpacked it, unfurled it, put it down, and it moved back and forth. People said, breeze. Ha ha. As if, A, they would be stupid enough to fake it and allow the tape that had the breeze in it to go out.
But also, if you went to the moon, the least you'd expect is a flag moved a bit strangely. You know what I mean? You expect him to make the soup dragon, you think, OK, he's not there. The flag moves a bit strangely, I can go with that.
Yeah. Why is...
I mean, solid rebuttal. Yeah, doesn't the flag look kind of weird? Well, I mean, if you go to the moon, you expect that the flag would move a bit wonky, right? I mean, what a scientific response. I'm not even addressing the flag. Don't even care about the flag. We're going to address a few other points in here just to demonstrate how easy it is to address some of this stuff. I don't even care about the flag. I'm not even, don't even care about the photos, really.
Isn't one of them holding up a camera? Because you can see him reflected, the one taking the picture's reflected in the visor of the one, and he's not holding up a camera like that, you see. But that's because they didn't, in the visors, put a camera up in front of their visor. They were mounted.
You couldn't really actually...
Yes. In the 1960s, we could allegedly land people on the moon, which we can't do today. I mean, for all you people... Well, what's the best evidence that the moon landings were fake? NASA's the best evidence. Literally. NASA themselves and what they say and what they can't do today is the best evidence. NASA today cannot replicate 1960s technology and put a person on the moon. Literally, in every way, shape, or form, not only is technology better in every area than the 1960s, it's in orders of magnitude better. Computing, rocketry, I mean, all kinds of stuff. But right now, NASA cannot replicate the technology and what we were able to allegedly do in the 1960s. You should at the very least have questions about that. But yeah, to this point, yeah. Allegedly, NASA could land people on the moon in the 1960s, but we couldn't doctor photos in the 1960s. I mean, literally, you couldn't doctor film and photos in the 1960s. Are you serious? This is your argument? I mean, it's just so ridiculous.
Imagine them getting a camera out, click, like that. Winding it on.
I'd like to go to the moon.
You would like?
Oh, yeah, I'd like to do that.
Yeah. I mean, two of the other things, just in case people are saying, but you haven't mentioned the clincher. One was the idea that below the lunar module that landed, there was no crater or sense of...
Yeah, let's look at the lunar module that they're bringing up. Let's look at the lunar module that they're bringing up. So for those of you who can't see what I've pulled up on the screen, this is a picture from NASA. This is nasa.gov. This is not a Photoshop. This is not from some conspiracy website. This is from NASA. Look at this thing. This is gold foil, tin foil. What is that, like cardboard with rivets in it? This is ridiculous looking. I'm not even pointing out that there's no blast crater or that there's no dust on the landing arms or any of that. Don't care. Completely irrelevant. This is the dumbest looking 5th grade level model science project I have ever seen. That's like gold foil, tin foil. There's like dents in this, what looks to be cardboard, some tape. Yeah, this went through the Van Allen radiation belts. Yeah, this went through, intense, G-forces coming off the Earth and all that. This looks stupid. This is stupid looking. Look at this. Look how ridiculous this looks. I don't even care about the blast craters or any of the other things you can point out, and the dust and the legs and all that. This is just ridiculous looking. Yep. But it gets better. Just hold on, NASA fanboys. It gets better. It gets better. We're going to get into the Soviet Union a little bit. We're going to get into some things that the Russian leader has recently said. So we're going to get into some of this stuff.
Of disturbed dust. The fact is, the engine's cut off and it hovered down and it very, very quickly landed. And unlike in science fiction films, it doesn't send out spears of flame as it descends. That just didn't happen. So,
because it was designed by, human brains and geniuses, and not a lot of people sitting tapping away at the internet who've got to go up to work in the morning.
Yeah,
who do you trust here?
We are in trouble as a species if people refuse to believe in things that they couldn't actually do themselves.
I mean, see, this is why debates are completely worthless, because people are so easily tricked by rhetoric. What that guy said was a straw man. No legitimate NASA critic or moon landing denier makes the argument that just because I can't do it, therefore it's not possible for other people to do it. Likewise, I would counter that with my own rhetoric and just say, you're basically effectively telling me that the US government doesn't lie. Would you like a million examples of how much the US government lies? And then you're going to tell me, British guy, during the Cold War, the U.S. government never lied about anything. Of course the U.S. government lied about stuff during the Cold War. Russia lied about stuff during the Cold War. Why wouldn't the U.S. government lie about public opinion? Especially when the Soviets were beating us in the space race. Yeah. They're beating us in the space race and then we just leapfrog them. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes complete sense. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And we're actually going to get into the Soviets and the Russians a little bit. So just hang on.
So true. And the other one was the footprints. They said, oh, look, there's too much moisture because look how clear they are. Only a sort of caked mud could do that. But actually, you could do that with flour. The fact is, it's just very fine ground. And there's, of course, it's a vacuum again. It coheres. And the other thing with the mirrors that Apollo 12 astronauts put on the moon, which are now used for bouncing lasers off, for detecting, for example, how far the moon is getting away from us. And you can make incredibly accurate measurements because of...
Yeah, let me address that one, and let me address another point. Number one, scientists were shooting lasers at the moon and getting readings back and bounce backs before anybody landed on the moon. You don't need Apollo missions to shoot a laser at the moon, which we were doing prior to Apollo 11, to get readings back from shooting a laser at the moon. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. We could shoot lasers at a moon and get a bounce back and readings years before the Apollo missions. Let me address another thing. Moon rocks. Yeah, moon rocks. You mean NASA allegedly brought back rocks from the moon that you can find on Earth? You mean rocks that really rare rocks you can find on Earth? You don't have to go to the moon to get quote unquote moon rocks. You can just find them on Earth. I mean, this stuff is so easy to address. It's so easy to address.
Mirrors on the surface of the moon. And perhaps to me the clinching one is that America's enemy at the time in the space race was the Soviet Union. And not once did they make a suggestion that they thought America hadn't done it. They never said, no, we know this was hoax.
Yeah. Okay, here's the Soviet one. This one comes up all the time. All the time. And I'm going to show you in more. You can't have it both ways, NASA fanboys. Can't have it both ways. So here's another article from nasa.gov. 50 years ago, the United States and the Soviet Union signed a space cooperation agreement. What? That's odd. Why during the Cold War would two superpowers who have the level of tension that they have sign a space agreement? I mean, it's almost as if, at the highest levels of world leadership that giant countries collaborate on things. What a novel concept. During the 1960s, collaboration in the space arena between the United States and the Soviet Union remained at a low level. The relationship characterized more by competition than cooperation. Yeah, because the Soviets were beating us. In the climate, in the early 1970s, the two nations began discussions to develop a common docking system. On May 24th, 1972, during their summit meeting in Moscow, the leaders of the United States and Soviet Union, President Richard Nixon, and Premier signed an agreement on cooperation in space. One of its articles called for the development of a joint system to allow their spacecraft to dock with each other in orbit. You mean the United States and the Soviet Union had an agreement to cooperate about space things? Weird. Maybe that's why they didn't do it. Maybe that's why they didn't do it. But nowadays, since, the collapse of the Soviet Union and the tensions between Russia and the West have grown due to Ukraine and all this. Well, here you go, NASA fanboys. Here's exactly what you don't want. Russia's former space chief doubts U.S. landing on the moon. Yeah, I know most of you haven't heard about this because the United States media wouldn't lie. NASA doesn't lie. The media doesn't lie. The government doesn't lie. Yes, a former chief of the Russian Space Agency has voiced doubt over the authenticity of the 1969 Apollo 11 moon landing. About 10 years ago, when I worked in the government, I sent an official request to provide me with documentary evidence of the American stay on the moon. Rogozin, I don't know how to pronounce his name, said that he was embarrassed about the return of Soviet cosmonauts from space expeditions barely able to stand on their feet and undergoing long recoveries while U.S. astronauts crawled out of their lunar ships, in his words, like cucumbers from the garden. Yeah. He further said that he continued to search for evidence on the U.S. landings on the moon while working at the Russian Space Agency, but said he could not find anything other than the angry accusations of some academics who claim that he undermined Russia's sacred cooperation with NASA. Yeah, the former space chief of Russia's space agency doubts it. Yeah, there you go, BBC. NASA fanboys.
Yeah. The fact is, for every ill-conceived argument that the moon landings were a hoax, there's a perfectly logical explanation to put our minds at rest.
To put your minds at rest. Why would your minds not be at rest for people having a different opinion on this? I mean, it's so ridiculous. People love the moon landings and love NASA. I cannot wait for the comment section on this video. I can't wait. I'm going to debate all of you. It's going to be fantastic. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.